Serpent, Scion by Orphan Account. Read by Kaiinbed. Chapter 3 Dumbledore's Quest. July 31st, 1991. Albus Dumbledore has a rough time. Nothing is going according to his thoroughly prepared plan. The first alarming sign of something unexpected occurred 2 days ago. A whole bunch of owls, sent to Privet Drive, returned with the undelivered acceptance letters after a couple of hours worth of clueless flying around Little Whinging. Harry Potter apparently does not live with his relatives, which is a terribly unpleasant surprise. A surprise which undermines the foundations of Dumbledore's plan. On the quest to find his precious chosen one, he only has a reluctant assistance of Severus. Minerva didn't even want to hear about joining the headmaster in his search for Potter. She obnoxiously reminded him her initial distrust and aversion towards the Dursleys. "I told you so, Albus." Knocking at the door of Privet Drive 4, Albus prays for the male owl's lack of success to be some kind of mistake. He prays for Harry Potter to be there. Petunia Dursley, in her oven gloves and a pinafore, opens the door apprehensively. Her eyes widen in horror at the sight of the two men in wizard's robes. "Good afternoon, Petunia," Dumbledore says politely. "Mind if we come inside?" "Not at all," Petunia stutters and steps aside, letting Albus and Severus enter the house. "Hello, Toonie," Severus mutters, apparently slightly embarrassed to see his childhood neighbor again. Albus watches Petunia, who gasps in an obvious disbelief, having recognized the young man. "Severus," she whispers. "Sorry to bother you," Severus says awkwardly. "We're looking for your nephew, Harry Potter." This is the moment when Petunia's long face pales rapidly under her thick layer of makeup, and Albus already knows that Harry is not there. Terrific. "What is going on, honey?" A deep growl comes from a conjoining room. Vernon Dursley, huge and intimidating, steps into the entrance hall and flushes, seeing two wizards talking to his wife. "What the hell?" he snaps. "Vernon, they came for Lily's son," Petunia says in a weak voice. Vernon looks daggers at Dumbledore. "Obviously Lily's brat isn't here, so you two may get the hell out of here," he snarls. "I thought I made myself clear in the letters I had left to you," Dumbledore says calmly. "You were supposed to take young Harry Potter into your care and raise him like your own son." "Like hell we would," Vernon growls. "A freak's place is amongst other freaks, not in a decent people's home." "Calm down, Vernon," Petunia hisses and turns towards Albus. "We've decided to put the boy in an orphanage. We wouldn't be capable of raising him properly, yet alone treating him like our own son." Dumbledore watches Petunia's face cautiously, with his twinkling blue eyes. "May I ask, why is that?" he asks flatly. "I wouldn't be able to ever look at this child without aversion. Without hatred," she explains, flushing slightly. "Neither would Vernon. I think Severus could explain it better to you," she adds unexpectedly. Albus turns towards Snape, taken aback. The young man clears his throat. "Well, I think you have already been aware of this, headmaster." He starts reluctantly. "But Petunia and her husband aren't fond of magical society. You should know perfectly well about her attitude towards us because, you have greatly contributed to it, rejecting Petunia's request letter." Albus looks daggers at Severus, who the impertinent kid thinks he is, undermining his supervisor's actions and decisions in front of these people. "Besides," Snape continues, disregarding Dumbledore's warning look, "Petunia hasn't been close with her sister ever since Lily has been accepted into Hogwarts. You couldn't have realistically expected Petunia to take care of Lily's child, obediently and without asking questions, if the sisters weren't even fond of each other." "Thank you, Severus. That will do," Dumbledore says in an ice-cold tone. "He's right, sir," Petunia says quietly. "I would have harmed this child if he had stayed here. I couldn't be like a mother to him. I'm afraid I couldn't even be a decent aunt." "You were supposed to harm him, You were supposed to be an abusive aunt. You were supposed to make him traumatized, vulnerable, begging for help. Dumbledore thinks. That was my plan, which you have ruined. May I ask about the boy's current whereabouts? He asked, doing his best to keep his voice calm. Wool Orphanage in London, unless he hasn't been accepted into a foster family, Petunia answers. Dumbledore freezes. Wool Orphanage. What a coincidence. He feels a sweet relief washing all over his body. Maybe the plan is not as ruined as he thought. Wool Orphanage, as far as he can recall, is one of the highest standard facilities of this kind in Muggle Britain, but it is still an orphanage. There is no way for anybody to spend 10 years there without getting bullied mentally or physically, at least to some extent. Harry may not be the crushed and pathetic boy with the spine of a jellyfish Dumbledore wanted him to be after 10 years with the Dursleys, but raised in an orphanage, he may still be a weak and impressionable underdog. Albus nods curtly to Petunia and her husband. Thank you, Petunia, Mr. Dursley, he says, trying to sound polite, and without any warning grabs Severus's arm to sidelong apparate him to London. He lets go of Snape in front of the brick building of the Wool Orphanage, and looks up at the young man's face, wince in pain. He has purposely grabbed him by his left forearm. I hope you do understand what you have done wrong, Severus, he says coldly. Snape clenches his teeth and looks at him with hatred in his narrow dark eyes. Mildly satisfied, Dumbledore knocks at the door. Veronica Cole is skinny, blonde hair, and reminds her grandmother a lot. She lets both men inside, and Dumbledore notices that the orphanage's interior hasn't changed much for the last 60 years. Clean, old-fashioned hallway leading to a staircase. Veronica, just like Petunia before, pales rapidly at the mention of Harry. God, she stutters. Albus will do, Dumbledore says, despite of the situation not being funny. Gentlemen, something terrible had happened 8 years ago. Veronica whispers in an apologetic voice. I had no idea that anybody is ever going to come and ask about Harry, but I'm so sorry. He's dead. Tears start falling down her cheeks. Dumbledore feels a cold, unpleasant cramp in his stomach. Severus is the one to keep a cold blood. He cannot be dead, he says calmly. In this case, his name would have disappeared from our book of admittance. Dumbledore sobers up. Snape is right. Tell us everything that happened, Miss Cole, he says politely to the woman. It was my grandmother, Veronica says timidly. I've made a mistake of drawing her attention to this boy. She freaked out, told me to get rid of him. One night, she was very drunk. She dragged the boy outside and hit him repeatedly with an empty glass bottle. The police came the following day. They made their investigation and found my grandmother dead. She died of snake's venom. Apparently she had been bitten by one. And there was this broken bottle and a huge puddle of Harry's blood next to her dead body. The police assumed that the boy's corpse had been dragged away and eaten by wild dogs. There's plenty of them in the neighborhood. Albus notices Severus clenching his fist so tightly that his knuckles turn white. Dumbledore himself, on the other hand, smiles internally. The boy is alive. It doesn't matter what happened to him after these described events. He had experienced things traumatizing enough to make him easily submit to Dumbledore's will and acknowledge the old headmaster as his savior and ultimate authority. That is what matters to Albus. Well then, he nods at the woman. Thank you for your time, Miss Cole. It's time for us to go. Snape turns his shocked face towards him. Wait, headmaster. Shouldn't we ask for more information? For instance, what made this elderly lady attack a little boy with an empty glass bottle? Dumbledore raises his eyebrows, looking at his subordinate. Snape's dark eyes glitter. Apparently he is having some unpleasant flashbacks from his own childhood. Well, nothing excuses her. What she did was horrible, Veronica replies. But I admit that Harry was an odd boy. He appeared to be a natural snake whisperer. He liked to spend his time around snakes, and they never did him any harm. Harry used to remind my grandmother of another ward of our orphanage, a boy from before the war, who also spoke to snakes. This boy from the past was a bully and terrorized his peers. Grandmother claimed that Harry's going to turn out the same. Dumbledore was obviously already aware of old Imelda Cole's association with young Tom Riddle, and Veronica's explanation doesn't surprise him at all. Severus, on the other hand, looked shattered. He must have just realized who was Miss Cole referring to. He strokes his left forearm anxiously. "Thank you, we know enough," Dumbledore says firmly, and turns towards the door. He leaves the orphanage, followed by Severus. "Now what?" the young man asks. "We know that the boy is alive, but we know nothing about his whereabouts." "We are going to search for him, Severus," Albus answers calmly. "Do you have any suggestions where to start?" "Godric's Hollow," Snape says hesitantly. Dumbledore smirks. "Yes, Severus. The boy would have definitely gone to live alone in the debris of his parents' house," he says mockingly. "You asked for a suggestion," Snape says through clenched teeth. "Do you have any better ideas?" Albus's light blue eyes glitter. "I have one." Third long-distance sight-along apparition this day has been a little bit straining for Dumbledore's aging body. He and Severus walk slowly down a road of Little Hangleton, towards the edge of a thick forest. Snape looks very unconvinced. "What is bothering you, my dear boy?" Dumbledore asks him with a barely concealed mockery. The young man frowns. "Just what makes you think that we might find the young Potter here?" "Oh, Severus, you're a clever boy. Really, don't you see what makes me think that?" Albus replies condescendingly. Severus shakes his greasy head. "Who saved little Harry from that violent old woman?" Dumbledore asks, giving him a hint. "I don't," Snape starts, but suddenly his eyes widen. "Snakes? The girl said that the old woman was bitten by a snake and died of its venom." Albus grins. "Correct. The place that we are heading to is inhabited by the last Parselmouth family in Britain. If the snakes, with their cramped minds and small emotional capacity, are able to find any human resident safe and trustworthy, it would be exactly this place." They approach a neglected cottage, half hidden behind the trees. The small building has uneven framework and mossy walls. Its tiled roof looks unstable, and its front wooden door is almost completely decayed. "He really might be here. What a horrible place to live," Severus notices. Dumbledore frowns. "Look at you. What a connoisseur of luxurious mansions," he mutters. Severus's pale cheeks blush. Albus's remark was deliberate. He knows where his subordinate's vulnerable spot is. They reach the cottage's doorstep, and Dumbledore extends his fist to knock at the rotting wood. But suddenly, he feels a powerful blow to his abdomen. The impact of the unexpected blow sends him a couple of feet back and knocks him down. He lands painfully on the cold ground. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices that Severus has faced exactly the same fate. The young man lands on his back right beside Albus. Dumbledore immediately lifts his head up. There is a loud rustle in the branches of an oak tree in front of the cottage. Albus gasps, taken aback, when somebody jumps off the tree, landing gracefully in front of the two men on the ground. He squints his eyes to take a closer look at the mysterious person. It's a young boy with unbelievably filthy, greasy streaks of raven hair reaching his shoulder blades. His face is covered with a thick layer of congealed dirt, making his bright emerald eyes even more distinctive. He's dressed in loose-fitting dark robes, apparently unwashed since newness. The boy holds a wand. What is more, he holds it like a fighter, in a double-handed firm grip. The pointed end of his wand is aimed at Albus and Severus. The boy, for somebody who has just picked up a fight with two fully grown wizards, is unbelievably calm and composed. Albus catches his ice-cold look and hears a soft hiss. "You are not welcome."